in the midst of all this big time football action, recruiting's always a big thing.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson, that's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being every day. Thank you newbies for being here today, and thanks everybody for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. Now, if you're watching us, you notice we have somebody else joining us, and that is Steve Wiltfong, who actually has a total bomb named after him. That is amazing. Steve, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for being with us.
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me on. Always fun talking Alabama football and Alabama recruiting.
Well, we got a lot to discuss. Obviously, Alabama made most of its hay back in July, and so we'll talk about some of the guys that have been committed for a while in just a bit. But for right now, talk about some of the guys Alabama's still in on, specifically somebody like a Tank Jones, who is committed to Oregon, but Alabama's still pushing.
Yeah, Tank Jones is keeping a few schools warm, right? He was at Miami for their season opener against Notre Dame. Talked to his dad last week. There could be other visits. He was at Oregon this past weekend. I think it's going to take a lot to beat the Ducks, but Texas A&M, Alabama, those were programs that he thought about a lot during his process. There were times where it looked like Alabama led. So we'll see how the season shakes out. We'll see how modern recruiting goes, what the threshold is for that. And but Tank Jones still keeping schools warm, and Alabama was one of his favorites, but will take a lot to beat the Ducks.
Steve, one kind of working theory we have, and I know we're all learning, even someone as knowledgeable as you are, about the recruiting landscape in this brand new environment. This is the first year where rev share is a thing. Do you anticipate less flips now that there's sort of financial deals in place several months before signing day, and kids haven't signed, but NIL deals, rev share deals are sort of known and in place?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's less flips than what we've seen in the past.
Absolutely. I do anticipate less flips, but on the flip side of that, kids get paid money to take visits now too. So we'll and anytime you get a bite at the apple, we'll see if those can turn things, because obviously if you're paying a young man to take a visit, then there's more where that came from, right? So, but I do think holistically, and we saw it last cycle, less flips now, coaching changes and things of that nature will lead to flips.
So Alabama hosted a bunch of guys this past weekend for ULM. Obviously, you want to get guys in whenever you can, and I would always prefer it be a bigger game. But you know what? I think Alabama played so well against ULM that it probably helped them a good bit. They had guys like Jet Tamala and also a Georgia commitment named Corey Howard. I want you to talk about Alabama's Jet Tamala for sure, but also talk about Corey Howard, because this is sort of a new guy on the scene. He's only a 3-star, but do you think he'll stay at a 3-star?
Well, we'll see. Obviously, we evaluate everybody's senior film, and that's the most important part of the process and projecting where they'll ultimately go in the NFL draft. But this is a guy that Alabama's gotten on late, and they'd like to add on the defensive line. We'll see if they look to add one more on the offensive line in this cycle. But they got a bunch of their commits back on campus for a great dominant win and good vibes. And look, Alabama recruited a top 5 class in 2025. Number 4 overall. Now here in 2026, they sit at number 7. And so these are 2 foundational classes that when you put them together and you got your quarterback, Keelin Russell, you have a chance to compete for a national championship. And I think that the guys on campus feel that. They trust Coach DeBoer and this coaching staff and his track record, taking Washington to the national championship game, and just his overall record as a head coach is super impressive. And I know at Alabama, it's tough to fill Nick Saban's shoes, but the Crimson Tide have a terrific class. A lot of those guys love being around each other. They see an opportunity to make some immediate impact at Alabama, and there was a lot of good vibes, and it was a good experience. And a lot of those guys will be back again this weekend as commits kind of headline the visitor list for Alabama's home game this afternoon.
Are you surprised that Kalen DeBoer, that there hasn't been a tremendous drop off from Saban, who's probably the greatest recruiter of all time in the history of college football? There hasn't seemed to have been a tremendous drop in terms of the quality of kids committing, the quality of kids visiting. Seems like DeBoer's just kind of picked up the ball where Saban left it and kept it rolling.
Well, time will tell. Obviously, with Nick Saban, they had a run where they had the number 1 ranked recruiting class like 6 cycles in a row or something like that. And then in addition to that, people would be like, oh, it's so easy to recruit at Alabama. In a sense, but they were recruiting against Georgia and Ohio State and LSU and other proud programs. And the guys that Coach Saban and his staff would actually allow to come to Alabama, they would then turn into first-round draft picks and NFL players, and they would get the best out of them, and they fit Coach Saban's culture, the competitive edge that those guys had and the pride that they had wearing an Alabama uniform, which then kept the culture where it was at and the competitive mindset. We'll see with Coach DeBoer and company. Yeah, number 4 class, number 7 class, those are great on paper, but those are just kind of previews of what you could maybe be. Saban was recruiting the number 1 class year in and year out, and then they would be the number 1 football team because from 18 to 22 years old, they maximized their ability. They got schemed into the right positions. They played hard week in and week out, and they won the biggest games on their schedule, and they won the last game. They played for the SEC title regularly, and then they played for the national championship. And so that's the bar. That's why the shoes are so hard to fill. Yes, I think Coach DeBoer and his staff are recruiting players that can help them win their next national championship, but they got to go out and do it. Georgia is recruiting. Kirby Smart's had a top 3 class every year he's been in Athens, and oftentimes number 1, and most of the time they play for the championship and they're in the SEC title game every year. So that is now the bar, right? They are the program standard that Alabama is trying to get back to that they once were. And so that's how you judge a recruiting class. People are like, that Florida class that Urban Meyer recruited was the highest ranked recruiting class on paper, and then Texas A&M surpassed that with a class a few years ago that included LT Overton, who's now at Alabama. That doesn't mean anything to me. It's not the best recruiting class ever because they didn't go out and get it done. How about that Ohio State championship from 2014 that had like 7 first-rounders? That's maybe the best recruiting class ever. Or some of these recruiting classes that Alabama had with like Tua and Najee and some of those guys that went on to win national championships. That's how you truly judge a recruiting class and how good it was.
I want to ask you about some of the individuals that are already committed to Alabama in the second segment, but wanted to ask this first. So Alabama took it on the chin week 1. Now, they played fantastically last Saturday. But how did the recruits react? Because, I mean, I'm just being honest here. There's some people that probably won't like my saying this, but there were a lot of fans that, it didn't take them long to start really questioning Kalen DeBoer and the staff. And the class, really, really good, like you said, very highly ranked, and the average, individual average is incredible. But did the commits take the loss and like have any second thoughts, or you feel like they're bought in?
Well, they're bought in, to answer your second question. But when you're in the diehard space, people reading Bama online or listening to your show, these are the guys that know all 85 scholarship players on roster. We know the backup right guard. We know who's competing for all the jobs. They know the name of every assistant coach, right? And so the emotion that comes with that, with the losses, the wins, the losses, it's exciting. That's what makes college football special. The recruits are a little more level-headed about it and believe in this coaching staff and believe in the future of the program. And they know the recruits in the previous class, and they see an opportunity to come in and play for Kalen DeBoer, who's had so much success, and help get Alabama back to its national championship. And when they visit, they feel the commitment to football. They feel the history. They feel the tradition. They see all the trophies in the football facility, and they feel like this is their destiny, their journey. And we actually did have my colleague Adam Gorney, who reached out to Alabama commits after the week 1 loss, asking them the question that you just proposed to me, and they're all good. And then they got back around each other, had a great weekend in Tuscaloosa last Saturday.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the guys that are committed to Alabama right now. Well, we have lost Steve Wiltfong. I hope he comes back. I hope he does.
Sorry, I'll replace the battery.
He's got to replace a battery. All right, well, look, we'll just leave it right there and tell you what I'll do. I'll take myself large. How about that? And I'll tell you about FanDuel. Because, no, I'm not. I'm going to tell you about DoorDash instead. I'm going to do an audible. I said, Omaha. Let's talk a little bit about DoorDash because DoorDash is the best. I love them. I use them all the time. It's almost a weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. Already talked about Jeremy Bernard. I picked him one time. But you know what? I'm going to pick somebody else here. I'm going to pick A.K. Deer because – man, when he came in, did he not make the most of his opportunities? He sure did. He had a big fourth quarter touchdown. That's the longest play for Alabama this year so far. So that's kind of a big deal. And just like A.K. Deer delivered for Alabama, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. It's a great thing to do when you order DoorDash. Trust me, I use it all the time. Okay, so Alabama's class pretty loaded right now, and the individual average is out of bounds. Could talk about a litany of these guys, but I want to hear what your opinion on Sedarian Morgan is, and let me tell you why. I grew up in Alexander City, Alabama, right where Sedarian Morgan is. I also was one class ahead of Terrell Owens. So, you know what? Sedarian Morgan has got sort of a Terrell Owens vibe. By the way, for those who don't know, Terrell Owens comes back to Alex City like once a year to play in the BRHS versus Coosa alumni basketball game. And he's got to be, if he's a year younger than me, he's got to be 51 now. And he's still dunking with relative ease. That's pretty amazing. So anyway, Sedarian Morgan gives me some T.O. vibes. And in fact, I would say at this stage in the game, he may be more advanced than T.O. was. T.O. got more advanced as he went to UT Chattanooga and lived in the weight room. Sedarian Morgan is already pretty beefcake.
Yeah, two different paths, right? Sedarian Morgan, I got a chance to see him on the 7-on-7 circuit at the end of summer, 6'4", 220 pounds. Looks like he plays for Alabama right now, one of the more physically imposing wide receivers in this 2026 recruiting class. And he's got a chance to be a matchup nightmare with the physicality he brings to the position and the catch radius. He's obviously a guy that Alabama loved a lot, and they were able to beat Auburn and Florida and Colorado, among others, to get him in the fold. And him and Max Sutter, 6'5", 225-pound tight end recruit, NFL legacy. His dad played for Bill Belichick on Sundays. Those are guys that bring just matchup nightmare problems, because who do you put on them? Who can get them on the ground? I mean, these are guys that are very imposing pass catchers that can make things happen with the ball in their hands.
One unusual aspect to Alabama's 2026 class, Steve, especially when you look at the national picture, is that Alabama has 2 quarterbacks committed in the class. I'm sure that's unusual nationally in terms of Power 4 program, having 2 guys, Jet Tamala and Taven Kaba. How unusual is that to have 2 guys, 2 QBs committed in the same class in 2025? And secondly, what are your thoughts about Tamala and Kaba?
Well, sometimes we do see programs that take 2 quarterbacks, but of this caliber, both 4 stars, Rivals 300 guys, they're betting on themselves to come in and compete with Keelin Russell and ultimately be QB1 at a special program like Alabama. And they're excited about Kalen DeBoer, Coach Grubb, Coach Sheridan, the offense, the way they recruited them. When you go into the Alabama football facility, you immediately feel at home because of the relationship that the coaches and staff have together and the cohesion, how much they enjoy being around each other. It's a great environment. And these quarterbacks felt that. And with the kid from Iowa, he's going to take his official visit in October, Jet Tamala, but was back last weekend. He's a multi-sport kid, really good basketball player, plays for one of the top football programs in the Midwest, an athletic quarterback. And then Taden Kawa, he's a physically imposing, powerful passer that I saw shine a couple times on the 7v7 circuit this offseason. So Keelin Russell obviously is the quarterback of the future, but these are guys that have the talent to come in and push him, which would then the high tides raise the ships, maximize Keelin Russell's performance ultimately, and then we'll see who comes out of it from those two. But Alabama trying to build that competitive depth. And you can't forget Austin Mack came in from the transfer portal as well. That'll certainly compete with it. And he's been with Coach DeBoer and company at a few stops now. And so Alabama just wanted to get the right competitive depth in their program. They want to do it through high school recruiting and not the transfer portal, and getting guys they know and guys they liked on the high school scene, and they're doing that.
Xavier Crowell is
the best player in the class.
Oh, wow. Okay. I just expand on that, because I was about to say to you, hey, look, he's a 4-star pretty much across the board right now. And me personally, I'm with the AHSA Radio Network. I get to see a lot of these guys. In Jackson High School is one of the best high schools in the state right now. It's pretty incredible. And they got dudes everywhere. But of all the dudes, he's the dudest. So I'm just saying, like, I can't believe anybody has him less than a 5-star, but hey, go for it. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, position value has something to do with that, right? You know, running back, not a premium position. When you're ranking kids, we're projecting them for the NFL draft. And every once in a while, you get a college football fan that rolls their eyes and say, well, why aren't you ranking them for what they do in college? Well, it typically goes hand in hand. The guys that get drafted, the highest of the best players in college football. And that's what we're trying to project in position value. Xavier Crowell, he does his job on the high school level about as well as anybody at any position does. He's probably the number 2 running back in the country behind Savion Hyder, who's committed to Michigan. He's a physical runner between the tackles that has the gear to hit a home run from anywhere on the football field. He can catch the football. I like his balance off contact. He can break tackles. He's a ferocious player and someone that I expect to be special at Alabama. They got a really good running back room right now. You talked about A.K. Deere earlier in the show. He's someone that can come in and push for time right away. Really love this kid. Was a huge recruiting win for Alabama this cycle. I think he's the best player in the class. That doesn't mean he's the best prospect. Doesn't mean he's going to hear his name first in the NFL draft. There's some other good players. Jair Edwards, Xavier Griffin obviously come to mind. But Xavier Crowell is the best bet in this class to be a great player at Alabama, in my opinion.
Yeah, another position Alabama's done really well in this group, Steve, is a cornerback. The duo of Jordan Edmonds and Zion Gibson, together, fantastic pickup for Alabama there.
Yeah, a lot of length, change of direction ability, can really play the football in the air. The SEC has historically some of the best wide receivers in the country. You need guys that can go out on an island and play them, allow you to play the defense you want to play. And those guys have the traits. Jordan Edmonds was fantastic this offseason when we saw him and really eliminated the question mark on speed. He ran really well at the Under Armour camp. And then Zion obviously comes from good cloth. His dad played at Ole Miss. First commit in the class. I think he's still developing physically too, so I expect him to get stronger and faster on the next level, but he has the traits coveted at the corner position.
So when we come back, I want to talk about some of the guys that are already on the team that maybe we hadn't seen very much of yet that we're all pretty high on. But let me tell you about FanDuel, because, FanDuel is awesome. And I love them. I've played FanDuel a lot, and it's a ton of fun. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets, yo. Look, I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. That's FanDuel for you. So are you ready to play FanDuel? You should be. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And then there's Mazda. Mazda. I appreciate that, man. Mazda might have the most loyal people that listen to this show because we've had so many people who own Mazdas text us or DM us and say, hey, man, I'm glad y'all got Mazda. I've had a Mazda forever. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. That's as of August 2025, by the way. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players over here at Alabama, we sweat every detail. That's Mazda does. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Okay, so it is no secret because I put it on social media. I have a giddiness about Keelin Russell. I enjoy what Ty Simpson has done already. I think 17 to 17 is nothing to scoff at like he was last weekend, and he was not the problem at Florida State. But Keelin Russell came in through 2 touchdowns, and on both of them, there was just something that you go, okay, that's I don't know how to put it into words, but that's what I want. You know what I mean? He had a like he's going to jab in, and then he steps back and hits Cole Adams for a touchdown. And then on his second touchdown, he was an absolute dart to a walk-on player. So pretty incredible stuff by him. I think he's just a star in the making.
I agree. Gatorade National Player of the Year from Duncanville, Texas. He played some of the best high school competition you can find. A 3-year starter. But more than anything, it's the intangibles at that position, just the belief that you have in yourself to be the best player. That is not fraudulent with Keelin Russell like it is with some other prospects. And he came to Alabama to win Heisman trophies and to win national championships, nothing more than nothing less. Yes, this is modern recruiting, and there were schools that threw a lot at Keelin Russell, particularly late in his process and trying to get him to reconsider the Tide. But the main reasons why he picked Alabama and flipped from SMU, who did a really good job recruiting him and is a really good local program, because he wants to win at the highest level. He believes in himself that he can achieve that, winning the national championship, winning the Heisman Trophy. He thought no better place than Alabama. And if you watch him in high school, he was completely in command his last 2 seasons, and he continued to get better at the Elite 11 finals. He was fantastic in that setting, throwing alongside the nation's best. And a lot of it was because of just the energy. You could feel that he has a presence to him. And quarterbacking on any level, you really only get to show your true skill set 25% of the time. Most of it is getting in the right protection, getting in the right play call, and then being accurate with the football, knowing where to go with the football. And those are all things that Keelin Russell excels at. But when the play breaks down, he can be mobile. He can go make things happen with his legs. He can make off-platform throws accurately downfield. He's obviously a special talent that has put up big-time numbers in high school and poised to do it in college. But so much of that position is pre-snap, and he is a stud in all the pre-snap qualities.
Speaking of quarterbacks, and I know we're getting short on time here, but I want to touch on 27 quarterback recruiting for Alabama, the 2027 class. Elijah Haven, #1 quarterback in the country. Yet there's 2 interesting in-state quarterback options for Alabama. Trent Seaborn from Thompson, probably the state's premier program, and Gunnar Rivers, son of Phillip Rivers, down in Fairhope in the south part of the state. Not saying Alabama's certain to end up with one of those 3, but Alabama certainly in the mix for all 3. Again, the country's #1 ranked quarterback as of now in the 2027 group. Elijah Haven from Baton Rouge, Trent Seaborn from Birmingham, Gunnar Rivers from the Fairhope area. Steve, what are you hearing on those 3?
Yeah, and Colton Nussmeier is a 4th guy I want to throw into the mix from the Lone Star State. His brother's Garrett Nussmeier, who's playing at LSU right now, but Colton's going to do his own thing. His dad coached in the NFL, obviously coached at Alabama. They're a football family. They're all on their own paths. And so Alabama's on the list for Nussmeier. Haven's going to visit this fall. He's had a lot of love for Bama. Seaborn, we'll see if Alabama's on the gas for him. If they are, they could ultimately be tough to beat. And then Rivers, obviously his recruitment is just kind of really starting to take off. So it'll be interesting to see where Alabama falls there.
How would you rank those 4?
Well, junior film is going to be very important in that process, but kind of coming into the season, you had, let's refresh myself. You have Nussmeier, you have Seaborn, you have Haven, and then you have Rivers. I think they're all pretty comparable to each other right now. I think that maybe I would go Nussmeier. And then I would go Rivers,
Wow.
Hayden, Seaborn. But, who knows, man? They're all writing their own scripts. They got junior years to play, and they're all exciting prospects for different reasons.
Yeah, they're all likely to be top 10
Yeah.
or 12 guys. I mean, not much separates, the top 10 from each other. It wouldn't be shocking at all if all four are in, for instance, the Elite 11 group,
Absolutely.
All right, Steve, to wrap up, I just got to ask you. I mean, I don't think there's anything cooler than having a recruiting term named after you, the Fong Bomb. It is like the gospel for recruitment.
It's iconic in the industry.
It is. If you are Fong Bombed somewhere, that's where you're going. I mean, you don't put it out there unless you feel 100% on it, and you're usually 100% correct. So how does it feel to have that iconic word out there associated with you?
Well, I'm thankful there's so many passionate readers for so many different fan bases that are very interested in these prospects and where they're going to go to college. And these predictions really build up the excitement around their upcoming decisions. And they're not always right. But, when you predicted Dylan Raiola to Nebraska and 4 million people are engaged with that prediction, it really builds it up, right? And when you predict an Xavier Griffin to Alabama coming off his decommitment to USC, it really juices up that Alabama fan base. And these kids feel that support from those fan bases. They get more follows on Instagram, on Twitter. And when they come on campus, these fans and students get around them, and it just feels close, like you're already part of us. And now recruitments change, and predictions change. But it's just the excitement. And recruiting, when I first started over 20 years ago, was such a niche market. And really only the true diehards were following recruiting. Now, the more casual fan that's at Bryant-Denny Stadium, they know these guys because there's just more people reading recruiting coverage. And so it's exciting. I think the Fong Bomb term started with the Nebraska fans, which is just one of the best fan bases in college football. They invade stadiums on the road, and they really got into the predictions and helped coin that phrase. And then it obviously carried over. And I'm thankful for Rivals and On3 that they promote it. And ultimately, it just promotes these kids, allows them to become even more mainstream before they get to college, builds their following up, and gets fan bases excited. But sometimes those predictions change. So then one fan base is disappointed, but you're now known in that fan base. And then this new fan base starts to rally around you and be like, oh, we're close to landing Xavier Griffin. This is so exciting, and it builds their following, builds the moment. And when that announcement comes, boom, it's just another celebration and more people rallying around these kids.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us today. Tell everybody how they can follow all your great work.
Guys, thank you for having me on. Rivals.com. I'm on the Alabama Bama Online site regularly. If you're an Alabama diehard, which you are if you're listening to this show, On3 Network for transfer portal intel. You can find me over there, @Wiltfong_ on Twitter. Instagram, just private. I get a lot of Instagram requests from people I don't know. That's just my family account. I don't really dabble there. So you're not getting in the end on Instagram, but you can find me on every other platform. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to doing it again soon.
I appreciate it, Steve.
Appreciate it, Steve. And until next time, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.